All right, we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning and welcome to a special meeting of the Milton Select Board on December 28th, 2023. We are here this morning because a week ago Monday on December 18th, the Select Board received petitions with respect to Article 1 of the town meeting, and pursuant to our charter of Chapter C, Section 7, our board must meet within 14 days of the filing of such a petition to call a special town meeting. Now, the 14th day after the filing is Monday, January 1st. We received certified petitions last night, so that narrowed us down to 2 weekdays, either today or tomorrow, to meet, and this was the most convenient time for the members. So I want to thank all the members, town staff, certainly Sue Galvin, our town clerk, and Peter Mello for meeting on short notice and during the holiday season. With that, we have as item 2 public comment. We don't typically have public comment during our special meetings, but one member, Mr. Zoll, requested that we have special comment, and so we put it on the agenda. During special comment, we allot 21 minutes for special comment. It's 3 minutes per speaker, and I will go in order by which the hands are raised by the attendees in the Zoom participant designation. And I will calculate the 3 minutes per speaker. Mr. Milano will calculate the 21 minutes. We are remote today, so we'll do our best to coordinate. I will let each speaker know when they are at 2.5 minutes, and then I will ask them to conclude at the end of 3 minutes, so we can move to the next speaker. All right. Anything on that, Mr. Milano? Are we all set for public comment?
Mr. Chair, I just note that Mrs. DiTullio Agostino did reach out before the meeting requesting an opportunity to speak during public comment.
Well, I see that her hand is number 1, so we're going to go to her number 1 because her hand is raised first in order, and then we'll go down the list. So let's start with Ms. DiTullio Agostino for 3 minutes for public comment. Please give your name and address and then begin. I think you're still on mute, Diane.
Sorry, I think I hit the wrong button and became a panelist, but thank you very much for this opportunity because 3 important questions came to my attention, actually came to mind this morning. So if you could please take note and address them either today or in the next, few weeks. The 3 reasonable accommodations ADA requests related to the petition and voting are: can the select board or the town clerk provide extended hours to what's noted in our charter and bylaws has voting being available only from 2:30 to 8 p.m. You might already know the answer to that. 2, please advise how mail-in voting and early voting are affected. That definitely will impact some with different disabilities. 3, has Milton had the required hearing to opt in or opt out of the new Votes Act? If not, does that commit Milton to allow early voting for this petition, should it go forward, but prohibit mail-in voting on the next muni election? Those are the 3 ADA reasonable accommodation requests that would assist people in being able to vote during the daylight hours more, because some people can't drive. We once had a townwide meeting where it was brought to our attention. We do have quite a few individuals who have impaired vision in Milton. And I would just add one other note. I recently read, and I believe the town council could address this, that attendees in Zoom meetings must be visible and cannot be there. So they have to be visible. If you could just have that addressed. And thank you so much for this meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Agostino.
If I hit leave, that doesn't make me leave your Zoom, does it?
I'll take care of moving it back from the
Yeah, don't hit leave because that may make you leave, but Nick will take you out as a panelist. Don't hit leave because that may
Thank you
take
very
out.
much. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Elizabeth Dillon is next on the list. Ms. Dillon. I think you're on mute, Ms. Dillon.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Dillon. I live at 79 Governors Road. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 6. I'm on the board of the East Milton Neighborhood Association, and I'm the co-chair of the Yes for Milton Committee. Today, I come to you, however, as a concerned citizen and co-chair of the Yes for Milton campaign. As many of you know, like many in town meeting, I'm an attorney. And like all attorneys, I swore to uphold an oath. I took an oath to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I take that oath very seriously. And as a town meeting member for Precinct 6 and a board member of the East Milton Neighborhood Association, I promise to put the interests of East Milton and Precinct 6 first, and I take that promise very seriously as well. You have before you a petition to relitigate Article 1, which was passed with a majority of town meeting, 2/3 of town meeting, after a year of consideration, and almost to the day 3 years after the law was passed with bipartisan support and signed by Governor Charlie Baker. This petition to relitigate the article comes with extreme consequences. In just 4 days, we will be officially in violation of the Commonwealth's law. And we will be alone in our violation. Every single other rapid transit community has voted yes to comply with the law. By voting no, by voting to violate the law, we will not only stand exposed and alone before the governor and the attorney general, clothed in nothing more than, as the warrant committee stated in its recommendation to town meeting, a mere hope that we will not be persecuted for our brazen violation, but we will also lose out on significant funds that the town needs. And not just grants set forth in the statute, but also, as stated by Governor Healy, funds for schools, roads, including traffic mitigation, which we so desperately need, and for MBTA improvements, including ramps and elevators to ensure ADA compliance. The governor and the attorney general have spoken, and I, for one, am not willing to put the town's future on the line for a hope that we are not targeted when we are the sole community violating the law. I understand my fellow East Miltoners who are concerned about change, increased traffic in our already overladen streets, increased parking issues, and the morass that is East Milton Square. I get it. I am concerned about nothing more than the well-being
30
of
seconds,
the
Ms. Dillon.
Thank you.
30
The
seconds.
60 children on my street who have to worry on a day-to-day basis about the cars on their street. Violating the law repeatedly, speeding, acting aggressively, and I will not be among the law violators that violate the laws of the Commonwealth. A way to fix the problems in East Milton Square is to accept the state's money, which we have done. A way to fix overcrowding in the schools is to accept state funds, which we have done. It is
Thank you, thank you, Ms. Dillon. Thank you, Ms. Dillon.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, apologize if I have to stop people. We have to be pretty strict in our adherence to the time limit so that everyone's treated fairly. So let's go next to Mr. Morong, if I hope I pronounced it correctly.
All right. You pronounced it correctly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay. My name is Matt Morong. I live at 136 Elliott Street. Good morning. I'm here to discuss my support for the passage of Article 1 from the December 2023 town meeting for a second time. In response to the recent petition drive to open this warrant article to all registered voters in the town, a group of like-minded citizens have formed a ballot question committee, Yes for Milton, which I am co-chairing with Elizabeth Dillon, who just spoke. It is our task to ensure that the residents of Milton are properly informed about why this measure gathered 2/3 support at town meeting. It is our expectation that as the electorate is educated about the substance of this article and the process that led to its development, the town-wide vote will achieve similar successful results. This article has been a long time coming. The resulting article contains the effort of many hands that had a role in its creation, a collaboration of innumerable hours of hard work by the Select Board, Planning Board, the Department of Planning and Community Development, citizens, and consultants. Members of the Planning Board who oppose this article in their comments to the Warrant Committee and on other occasions have promised that they will get to work on an alternate article with the goal of a vote at this spring's town meeting. That was their position, that they just need more time to put their nose down at the map and to carve up a new, better plan. Well, the warrant for this upcoming spring town meeting closes on Wednesday, January 17th at 5 p.m. At present, there has been no notice of any planning board meeting since town meeting adjourned, no notice of a public forum, no notice of a public hearing, and no alternate ideas that have been shared with the public. I urge the citizens of Milton to recognize that the article that they will presumably have the opportunity to vote on is good public policy, created through a transparent, open process. For those that oppose elements of it, passing the article, despite these misgivings, gives Milton an opportunity to remain compliant with state law as we refine our zoning to better serve the people of this town. The issues that this planning process has drawn a spotlight to deserve attention, and a no vote will not solve them. We stand ready to work with the planning board and any residents to work to make this article even better in the future. The MBTA zoning law recognizes a need that Milton zoning, enacted in 1938, responded to a very different Milton and a very different region from what exists today. It is time for us to recognize that the way we have lived has changed since that time, and our zoning should reflect it. It's a chance to build on what we love about this town and help.
30 seconds, Mr. Moran.
Thank you. It's a chance to build on what we love about this town and help it meet some of the pressing needs of Milton and our region. It is time for Milton to join the other 12 rapid transit communities that have risen to the task and passed zoning compliant with the MBTA Communities Act. I urge you to vote yes for Milton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moran. Next, we have John Kahane. Mr. Kahane. If you can promote Mr. Kahane. Sir, if you unmute yourself, please, then we can hear you.
Unmute. There we go. Am I
There
here?
you go. There you go. Loud and clear. Please proceed.
Thank you. I am in support of the ballot initiative, and I'll keep it brief. As proposed, the plan as proposed in everybody's own words will not change. Things will not change. That was the whole sales pitch. Things will not change. So we won't provide the affordable housing, climate-friendly affordable housing that this act was designed to do. And that is my whole reason for this ballot initiative, because I realize it puts Milton at risk, but I think we can, I'd be proud if we could stand out as the ones who fix this so it actually does provide climate-friendly affordable housing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Kahane. All right, I'm going to give people just a moment longer to put up their hands. Mr. Milano, what is it for the people who called in? Is it *6?
9.
*9. I always get that wrong. For those who called in, if you press *9, then your hand will be raised and we can recognize you if you want to participate in public comment. So we'll give those who have joined by. Oh, we do have another hand up. So let's go to Cindy Christensen. Let's promote Cindy Christensen, please. If you can unmute yourself and give your name and address, and off you go.
And I won't need the timer, because what I want to say is that I'm in favor of fairness and justice. And what this board put together and put out to town meeting is neither fair nor just. The multifamily housing should be spread out to each of your neighborhoods just as much as you've spread it out to precinct 7. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and we do have another hand up. Looks like Tom. Well, let me just stop my timer, reset it. All right, Mr. Callahan, could you promote Tom Callahan, please? Callahan, if you unmute yourself and you can go, state your name and address, and you can go ahead.
Great, thank you, Chair Zulus. Tom Callahan, 16 Orono Street, Precinct 4. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the election. And I'm also with Matt and Elizabeth, part of the Yes for Milton effort, the campaign committee that formed to encourage town residents to vote yes. And I understand that today you'll be talking about and possibly even setting a date for this election, and also maybe some of the rules of the election. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm going to say that right up front, and I understand the law is a little murky on these special elections or a special town meeting. I guess that is what is officially called. But I wanted to just encourage the select board to err on the side of giving more access and more time for voters to consider this question. It's as town meeting members know, and I'm a town meeting member, many of us attended lots of planning board hearings, lots of planning department staff presentations, spent numerous hours, and now voters throughout town will have to dive into the details in, I think, a few more days or weeks, if we can get it. And also liberalized voting hours, early mail-in voting, all of those things, I think, to encourage more town residents to vote rather than fewer, I think would be in the interest of democracy here. So hopefully we can educate voters to vote yes on this, but we want to be on the side of encouraging all of the town's residents to get themselves to the polls to vote on this important issue. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Mr. Milano, how are we doing on the overall 21 minutes?
I have 8 minutes and 50 seconds remaining.
All right, plenty of time for Mr. D'Amato. So if you can promote Mr. D'Amato, please.
He's coming now.
All right. Andy, if you unmute yourself and just give your
Yeah.
name and address. Yep.
Sure. Andy D'Amato, 26 Pierce Street, town meeting member, precinct 7, and a member of the East Milton Neighborhood Association. Just, I guess, a little confused on all the, the reaction here. This is part of our charter for town meetings. So when people talk about the sanctity of the vote at town meeting, this is a vehicle, if I'm not mistaken, to allow all the residents, to challenge the vote. And it seems to me it's legal, and we should just let the process play out at this point. And as far as, breaking the law or not upholding the law, this is a legal mechanism in which we're using. So this country was founded on, challenging authority, from the, Boston Tea Party to filibusters in Congress and impeachment hearings to change, what is perceived to be a mistake by the legislator. I just want to be clear that I think we should let the process play itself out, have this special vote, and live with the results. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andy. All right, I don't see any further hands up, but let's give people a minute. Remember, Nick, what is it again? *6 or *9? I have a mental block on that.
9.
For the phones, it's *9 in order to raise your hand. So *9 for the phones if you want to raise your hand and participate. Oh, there we go. Mr. Kahane is back. And so we don't typically allow But Mr. Kahane had a very short time, so Mr. Kahane, well, let's promote him very quickly because he did cut his time short. So he maybe just remembered something, and so I don't remember. I think Mr. Kahane, we don't usually have people come back, but I think your time was short. I think your time was short. So why don't we give you up to maybe a minute and a half if that works for you?
I need 10 seconds. I forgot to introduce myself.
Oh,
okay. I forgot to introduce, but I'm new to this.
Yep,
John
fair
Cohane,
enough.
John Cohane, town meeting member, precinct 7. I live on Antwerp Street, and I'm also on the East Milton Neighborhood Association board. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Great. I'm glad you added that, John. Thank you very much. That's great. That's great. That's great. All right. Anyone else for public comment? Oh, we do have someone, and this is someone with the name Mark. So if you could promote Mark, and if Mark could give his full name and address, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes. And I will give you a notice of 2.5 minutes. So if you can unmute yourself, Mark, give your name and address, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes, and I'll give you an indication of 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yep, I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
I can, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. I won't take 3 minutes, nor did I expect to speak, but my name's Mark Kroninger. I'm in precinct 7 on Melbourne Road. Good morning, everybody. I hope you had great holidays. I wanted to just echo the comments somebody made previously about the fact that that nobody wants to break the law, and yet that's how bad decisions get rectified. So this was a really bad decision by the legislature to call us a high-speed transit town based on the dilapidated Mattapan trolley and the minimal bus service. Somebody mentioned before that other towns have not voted to be in violation, but several towns that are much more MBTA driven than Milton is, including Arlington, Belmont, etc. I lived in those areas. Those are T towns. This is not a T town. Last night I walked from the DPW yard to the Mattapan trolley just to see what an easy little stroll that would be to get on that if you actually needed to use it. It's about a mile. You have to walk through 2 on and off ramps over 93. And nobody in the right mind is going to consider that being a T. The bus service around here is minimal. East Milton Square I've lived here for 26 years, is a outright disaster right now. And for anybody who doesn't use it regularly, come spend a couple of days in East Milton Square and try to get on off of Granite Ave or Squantum in the morning. This needs to be rectified. A gentleman earlier said that we should have this spread out across the rest of the town to mitigate the impact of East Milton Square. I think anybody would be in agreement with that. Okay, so that I really feel like East Milton Square and the east side of town is left holding the bag on it. And it's easier for people who aren't in that part of town to vote to let us hold the bag. And I don't think it's fair. And when things aren't fair, you need to speak out and resist as opposed to rolling over. That's my opinion. Thank you very much. I do appreciate the efforts that you've all been making in the meetings, but this is not fair to the east part of town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kroninger. All right, Mr. Milano, how much more time do we have on the 21 minutes?
5 minutes.
Oh, okay, plenty of time. Well, if someone chooses to use it, not that we're advocating for it. All right, we do have someone, Mr. Asher. Oh, now he's gone. Let's give people a minute more to raise their hands if they wish. Again, on the phones, it's *9. Is that right? Okay, *9. If you're on the phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and if you're on the Zoom, just use the raise your hand function, and we'll recognize you for public comment. And I see Susanna Haggerty. If you could promote Ms. Haggerty, and if you could just give your name and address, and you'll have up to 3 minutes, and I'll let you know it when you have 30 seconds to go. If you could promote Ms. Haggerty.
No reaction yet. Hang on.
Oh,
There we go.
okay. Ms. Haggerty, if you could unmute yourself and give your name and address, and then you'll have up to
Hello,
2 minutes.
I apologize. I haven't done one of these panelist meetings before, so it's a new Zoom function for me.
No worries. We're all finding our way through this, so go ahead to take your time.
I'm Susanna Haggerty. I live at 1066 Hillside Street. I always get my precinct wrong. It's either 9 or 5. Every time I go into the high school, they have to remind me to vote. And I, like the previous commenter, I did not come on here planning to comment, so I don't have like a little prepared speech to read. And I have also not been active in this campaign and this issue, so I do not have the expertise of some of the previous commentators. I just want to point out, I also don't live in East Milton, so I don't have to spend a lot of time negotiating the horror that is the traffic over there. But every time I do, I'm just blown away that people have to live under these circumstances. And I cannot imagine trying to insert high volume of additional residents into that already overtaxed area of town. So that's the practical piece. But really what I wanted to say is, I really object to the characterization of holding a vote on this as somehow endangering funds that come to the town of Milton. This characterization is really a scare tactic designed to prevent people from utilizing the full democratic process and allowing the full town membership to vote. I recognize the town meeting has voted on the issue. I recognize that's a democratic process. I just struggle to understand the resistance of some folks in opening up that process to include everybody in town. If people want to vote on it, I don't really understand why some people are so reluctant to allow that to happen. If the full town votes on this and the full town disagrees with my opinion and wants to bring a bunch more people into Milton, I would accept that as the will of the town. That's the democratic process. But I think when people are out there saying that if we vote on this, we're going to lose money and our schools are going to go broke and our roads are going to crumble. And I mean, I think that's really an attempt to intimidate people from not participating in the democratic process. And I find that really concerning as a citizen. So, I urge, this body to recognize the will of the people who have signed this petition in effort to encourage further discussion and a full townwide vote, and to allow that process to go forward and for all of us to live with the results and respect the opinions of our fellow townspeople. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haggerty. That was an impressive extemporaneous effort, and look forward to hearing sometime when you write it down, because that was really good for not writing anything down. All right. I think we have, do we have more time, Mr. Milano?
I have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. So we'll go to Margaret, who's next on the list. And Margaret, please promote Margaret. And Margaret, if you could give your name and address, and you'll have 2 minutes because we're running on time. Up to 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could give your
Okay.
name and address, and you'll have up to 2 minutes.
Okay, Margaret Vaughn, 600 Canton Avenue. I came to Milton in 1943, and I moved out in 1963 to a local town to bring up the children. I'm back here in about 5 or 6 years, but I've been connected to Milton all those years. What I would like, and this is extemporaneously also, I would like all of the citizens of this town be considered. Period. I just don't feel connected to this town whatsoever. And I don't think it's a new style. I think it's kind of always been there, but not as impactful as now. But I feel like we are totally disconnected from what's really going on. I understand laws, blah, blah, but I do not understand that the people of this town are not first and foremost in your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. All right, Mr. Milano, do we have 1 more minute that we could offer to someone, or?
That's what I count to.
All right, so we have one more minute, and I saw, Mr. Wilkinson's hand went up, then it went down, and Mr. Gregorio went in front of Mr. Wilkinson, so I think we'll have to go with Mr. Gregorio because them's the rules, so. Mr. Wilkinson, I apologize because your hand went down for a while, so if we could promote Mr. Gregorio to wrap us up for our last minute here. If you could unmute yourself and give your name and address, and then you'll have a minute, Mr. Gregorio, because we just have a minute left.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Very well.
Hold on. I think I'm a boomer because I don't know how to use this thing. That's
All right,
hilarious.
just give your name and address, and off you go.
It's Ian Gregorio, and I live at 41 Hawthorne Road. And I just wanted to I appreciate all the select board and everybody that came this morning to chime in here. And I just appreciate everybody participating in this process, whatever the outcome is. That's it. That's all. I appreciate everybody in town. Thank you so much.
All right, well, so I think we have 45 seconds, 45 seconds that we could offer to, and again, Mr. Wilkinson put his hand down, and then a KJ got in front of Mr. Wilkinson. So again, we'll have to, with apologies to Mr. Wilkinson, we'll go next to KJ, and if KJ could give their name and address and take the last 45 seconds. You could give your name and address, and then you'll have up to 45 seconds. You first unmute yourself, KJ. There you go.
Okay, thank you. This is Kristen Joyce from Cortland Circle. I think, I mean, a lot of people have said a lot of things that I would echo. But I think the thing that is most difficult for us over here is obviously the volume, but that it doesn't seem like this area in the plan is handled in the same way that the MBTA region is. And just for an example, the multifamily by right, it seems like if this area had that, and then also the aesthetics, maintaining the height that's in this area, that you would have family, et cetera, there wouldn't be a need to put 700 units in that lot or 200 over at 2 Granite or up at the square. So it just, to me and to our neighbors, it feels very inequitable, and the burden on East Milton is just far too large.
Thank you, Ms. Joyce. Thank you, Ms. Joyce. All right, I think we've exhausted our 21 minutes. Is that right, Mr. Milano?
Yes.
Great, thank you, everyone. And Mr. Wilkinson, you went in and out, and so, but we'll certainly have citizen or public comment at our next meeting on, currently scheduled as January 9th, I believe. So you're certainly welcome to join us then. And we'll have another section of public comment. All right, moving on to item 3, discussion approval. Petition requesting Article 1 approved at the December 4th, 2023 special town meeting be submitted to the voters of the town at large, and a date for special town meeting in accordance with Section 7 of the Town of Milton Charter. Last night, or last evening, we received from our town clerk, Ms. Galvin, a certification for a petition certifying more than 5% of the registered voters, certifying 2,787 signatures. And that was signed by Ms. Galvin and the other members of the clerk's office. And I want to just turn to Ms. Galvin to see if she has anything further to add, and then we'll go to Mr. Mello to give us the outlines of what we need to do here today. So, Sue, if you have anything to add, please help me out.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me and including me in this important discussion. If it's okay with you folks, I would like to address Ms. Agostino's questions regarding mail-in voting and voting in person. So I believe Ms. Agostino asked about mail-in voting. So that is a permanent fixture of all elections that the town does not opt in or opt out. We offer that for every state, federal, and local election. On the town clerk's website, there's instructions as to how to apply for one. And it's pretty simple. You can either fill out an application and or simply submit a letter signed indicating your interest. We do have a very busy election season with 3 state and federal elections, in addition to our local town election in April. The Secretary of State's office will be sending out cards to all registered voters in the Commonwealth for their convenience, allowing them to request vote by mail ballots for individual elections or all elections. That should be going out sometime during the week of January 8th or 9th, I believe. In terms of voting in person, so the town is required for all state and federal elections to offer vote in person. And there is a schedule that will be available on our website. For town elections, if the Board of Registrars present to the selectmen a request for having vote in person available, then the select board could consider whether or not that would be offered. That's new to the Votes Act. In the prior town election of 2023, we did not come to the select board, the Board of Registrars did not ask the select board to consider doing so. Historically, that has not been a big avenue for our local elections. Hence, that was the reasoning behind not asking for that. I believe that should, and if you folks have any questions regarding that, I'd be more than happy to answer that. Or if you feel that I didn't answer Ms. Agostino's questions regarding that, please feel free to interrupt me. In terms of, I would like to request that the select board, when considering running the election, that we do take into fact that the town charter, section 7, does indicate hours of being open to 8 p.m. I believe that we should offer our voters the exact same time frame that we historically do offer our town elections as well as our state and federal. Those hours are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I have spoken with town council as well as the director of elections for the state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. There is a section in the general law, chapter 54, section 64, that states the selectmen in any town may provide the hours during which the polls shall be open for the purpose of voting on a question to be submitted to the voters of said town, and shall be the same hours designated by said selectmen for the election of town officers. In speaking with town council and the director of elections for the state, we may want to consider and go a little further in asking town council to petition the courts to extend those hours, just to cover all bases that we would be following the letter of the law. For right now, I think that is all I have to say, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sue. Very helpful. Why don't we next go to Town Council Peter Mellon Mello, and then open it up for comments and questions of the members. So Mr. Mello, if you could weigh in on what we need to decide here. Mr. Milano, do you want to go before Mr. Mello?
I just, Mr. Chair, I think one other item that, if you want to discuss it later, is the date of the election. I don't know if you wanted to hear from the town clerk her recommendation on a date now or wait till later.
It's up to the town clerk. Sue, do you want to make a recommendation now or later?
Certainly. I would recommend there's two potential dates. One would be February 6th. Hang on one second. I just want to get my papers in line so that I'm saying the exact correct date. But yes, February 6th, it is a Tuesday. Typically all of our elections are held on a Tuesday. So, again, I would like to, keep with consistency as to not confuse any of our voters and, to allow them the opportunity to vote. So February 6th or, February 13th. Those are the two, dates that I think would be, most advisable. I do have the town does, the state does, has the presidential primary on March 5th. So, it's a little tight, but, I think either one of those dates should work.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Mr. Milano. Let's go to Mr. Mello, and then we'll open it up for comments or questions of the members. Mr. Mello?
Thank you, Chair Zulus, and nice to see everyone. I hope everyone had or just enjoying a great holiday season. So the process is laid out in Section 7 of the town charter. As you might expect, the language in that section doesn't address some particulars normally associated with like a statewide election, for example. There are some questions and moving parts that I think it would be appropriate and prudent to vet a little bit with the elections division, and we're in the process of that. With holiday scheduling and the like, some of those, there's there might be a time frame that we'll be working with the elections division's staff on some of these particulars, but I think, vote that I think meeting, but I think a date should be set by the board.
Ms. Galvin, Richard, do you want Sue to weigh in first, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask, do you want a motion? I'm ready to do it, but I'll wait till Madam Clerk weighs in first.
Sue, do you have something else to suggest here?
I just wanted to state that, in order for the ballots and everything to be printed, we will need a question pretty soon. I'm looking at the very latest, would be somewhere around the 4th, that a question would need to get to me in order to be able to get it to the printer.
That we would move to schedule a special town meeting election in accordance with Section 7 of the town charter to be held on let's say February 13th, and that the language appearing on the ballot for such election shall be stated in substantially the same form as the motion presented in the final ballot language in consultation with the elections division of the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So that's a proposed motion that I think, Sue, will get us to the point A, so you could have language by the 4th, if that's the motion that the board on. Does that work, Sue, do you think?
That does work. And I would think that we'd need to make a decision as to the hours at whether this meeting or by the 4th as well.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because I'll need to be on the warrant, right? Right.
If that's okay, I will verbatim with one friendly amendment, with one amendment to it, verbatim. I'll make that motion as you just read it, with the date to be February 13th. And my only addition to that would be to allow the town council to continue discussions, to whatever we have to do to move forward. I don't think we have to vote that today. If it involves petition the court to, my intention would be to mirror the normal voting hours for normal elections as we would have every other election in town. If,
So you'd want to add with the election to be conducted between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m.
yes, that'll work. That's perfect. That'll work. So
I'll
that'll be my
second that.
motion.
I would second that.
Okay, all right, so we have, I don't know who came first, I think it was Mr. Zoll, but, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded. The motion, and I'll read it again, from Mr. Wells, move that the board schedule a special town meeting election in accordance with section 7 of the town charter to be held on February 13th, 2024, and that the language appearing in the ballot for such election shall be stated in substantially the same form as the motion presented at town meeting on December 11, 2023, to approve Article 1, provided that the town administrator shall be authorized to determine the final ballot line election shall be conducted during the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And that motion's been made and seconded. Now,
Chair
yeah,
Zulus, I guess,
Mr.
I don't know if it may make sense to add language to that, contemplating or authorizing us to commence a court proceeding if deemed necessary to,
Right.
to gain authorization to expand the polling hours
Right.
if it's determined that that's necessary.
And so the first motion, if Mr. Wells, if you'll
I'm
accept.
fine with that.
anything
Absolutely. Go
Without the
back to where
election
we were.
hours. And the
I'm also
second
fine
will,
as secondary.
okay, so the motion has been made and seconded, strictly with respect to the ballot language, not hours. We'll take that up in a subsequent motion. So, comments or questions on the, or discussion with respect to the motion on the floor?
Let's vote.
Seeing none, all those in favor, this will be a roll call vote. Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zoll,
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. Okay, so we have our election that is going to be on the election scheduled for February 13th. And the language will be in the same form, substantially the same form as the motion presented at town meeting, which is as is provided in the charter. And the town council will town administrator will work on the final ballot language in consultation with the election division of the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So now, if we want, we can take up a secondary motion. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm confused as to why we would change what's in the charter, since everybody that's spoken today is referencing the charter and the laws that go around the charter. So why is it that we would be petitioning the court to extend the hours that are already outlined in the charter, and there's already direction in the charter for what we should be doing for one of these elections? B, I'm wondering how much this is going to cost us. The article as written in the warrant is about 30 pages long. Is each ballot going to need to be 30 pages long? Because I'm very concerned as the chair of the finance committee, what we're looking at here in terms of printing costs. If we have to print thousands of ballots that are 30 pages each, I'm just wondering if anybody's done some math on that. So those are my two questions. Thank you so much.
All right, so why don't we take the second question first, which is the question on the ballot, and let's go to Mr. Milano, Mr. Mello, and Ms. Galvin if they want to weigh in on the question of the form and the cost of the ballot.
So just to clarify, what the ballot question will be is the motion that Mr. Zulus made at town meeting, and substantially in that form. We will certainly have the language of Article 1 available, and we plan to have that both at the town clerk's office, obviously on the website, and then at each polling location. So if folks are interested in reviewing the full article, they'll have that access to that. Each ballot will not print the full multi-page article. It'll be strictly the motion as made at town meeting. So it'll still be a short ballot, but we'll make and ensure that there are plenty of copies of Article 1 available if folks want to review it at the time that they are voting. In terms of
Or-
cost, I believe the annual town election last year was over about $46,000. So I think that's what we typically look at to run an election with vote by mail for a full day of voting. Sue, if I have that right.
That's correct. And I honestly do not think that the cost would change if the hours were 2 to 8 versus, I mean, it would be insignificant, the cost.
All right, is that sufficient on the question of the ballot and the cost, Ms. Bradley?
Yes, can I ask a follow-up question? I believe I
please.
talked to Mr. Milano about this, but Mr. Milano, this would come from the general fund and we would just make a transfer, is that correct? So we have to have a finance committee meeting, is that correct?
The clerk's office budget for this year did not account for obviously this election. So currently this cost is not funded in the town clerk's budget. So we would certainly need a reserve fund transfer and appropriations transfer to fund the costs prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else on the ballot and the cost? The next issue that Ms. Bradley raised was the hours, comments, questions, and then the question of whether we want to make a motion to establish certain hours, whether those are in accordance with Section 7, whether there's something different, and whether what means we may have to extend the hours if we wish to do so. Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this particular issue, I do feel compelled to speak because I feel like we're getting kind of a pick and choose from the town charter about which laws we want to use and how we want to use them. So if we were following the charter exactly, we would have limited voting hours and we would have 40-page ballots. And I think certainly anybody who has a chance to think about that thinks that that's not probably the right solution when you have an election. I think there's the larger question of should a town have an election if the result of the election ensures that the town is breaking state law. On that, the bylaws are quiet because I'm sure nobody thought at the time they were drafting the bylaws that such a question would ever be posed. And I am curious to get the input of the town council on that particular question. I feel that if folks want to vote on something, they should vote on it. I feel like we should be clear about what the costs are. It's not scaremongering to talk about what the enumerated costs of a no vote would look like. But I think certainly everybody should, if they want to weigh in and we're clear that this is costing the town dollars that we don't really have to spend. And it could cost the town lots of dollars if the vote goes in the direction of the no. Without substantially changing the outcome of what's actually going to happen. If Milton really feels like we want to cede our control over zoning to the courts and to outside developers, so be it. I think the longer process with longer voting hours and more opportunity for people to learn really about what's in this bill instead of what's been told to them in front of the fruit center and understand the consequences. I think the town will come to the same conclusion that town meeting came to, vote overwhelmingly in favor of following state law and keeping control of our own zoning decisions. So I'm in favor of expanding the voting hours per Ms. Bradley's question about why we're picking and choosing. But I would like to hear from town council before we go all the way forward about the legality of actually having a ballot measure that would put the town out of compliance with state law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Zoll. We'll go to Mr. Weller, but Ms. Galvin has her hand up. Sue, do you want to weigh in before Mr. Mello answers that question?
I just want to weigh in on why we should have the voting hours extended from the bylaw. I feel like I would be remiss as the chief election official. My job is to ensure that every voter has every opportunity to vote, and by reducing the hours according to our charter, I feel that we would not be allowing our voters every opportunity to vote in an election. So that would be my reasoning.
Thank you, Ms. Galvin. Ms. Bradley, can we have Mr. Mello answer the question on including this as a ballot measure before you speak, or do you want to wait?
Absolutely, as long as he includes how much this will cost to go to court and what the outcome looks like for that.
Okay, good add. Mr. Mello.
Right, so
First, Mr. Zoll's question, and then Ms. Bradley's as well.
okay. So with respect to Mr. Zoll's question, I'm not trying to be evasive. I think that it's probably, my opinion on the legality of of invoking the referendum process in this context, I think is probably best conveyed confidentially. I'm just trying to think of all the angles to that. I think it's, if the board wants my advice about that question, I'm happy to provide it. I think it probably is best conveyed in a confidential correspondence, written correspondence, which I'm happy to provide. And readily, by the way. The second question about the cost, I think that, and I've done this in the past in a totally different context. I recall during COVID, there was a logistical question associated with the town meeting, whereby a client town wanted to, for space reasons, wanted to have town meeting in a separate municipality, and we were able to commence basically a procedural court action that called upon the court to exercise its broad equitable powers to issue an order that allowed the town to do that, as legislation to allow for that was pending. So I think that it's possible that we might be able to use the same sort of mechanism to confirm some logistical details, more procedural items with respect to this process. I think that in terms of the cost of that, extemporaneously as I'm sitting here, I think we probably could streamline, the preparation of the required court papers. Would be like a complaint. We need to have a motion for preliminary injunction along with a supporting memorandum. I'm thinking that could all be completed in probably 20 or 30 hours. So, a few $1,000s, we'd have a court hearing, and, probably virtually, but perhaps in person. But that would be another few hours. So I think everything, depending on the exact scope of it, but if it were just confined to procedural items and logistics and the like, I think it would probably be somewhere in the order of, 20, 30 hours of legal work at a few $1,000s.
So, Mr. Mello, if I may, so is it your view that in order to extend the hours from the 2 to 8 as provided in the charter to our normal 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., will that be will that necessarily require court action?
I'm not sure I would say that unequivocally. It would be, I think, perhaps the cleanest approach, because we could resolve all doubt. I know Sue mentioned chapter 54, section 64, and there is language that would seem to confer upon the select board the unilateral authority to adjust the hours. Now, that statute, I don't think, includes language stating, notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary. Sometimes you see that in other statutory sections. So one might say, well, the legislature had it intended this language to override the terms of a local charter, it would have included that sort of disclaimer in there. Although I could see an argument in the other direction, but I think it like I said, maybe a court proceeding would be the most prudent or the cleanest approach, because it would resolve any question about that.
But it's fair. Is it fair to say, Mr. Mello, that we do have, based on that statute, some statutory basis for setting the 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., regardless of what the charter states?
I think that's fair to say. But again, I think that the absence in that statute of language that I just described, to the effect that, this entitlement exists notwithstanding any contrary terms of any general or special law. I think it would be reasonable to take a different view. And this is one of those questions that I'd like to iron out specifically with the elections division, because I'm not, based on my initial conversations with that office, I'm not sure that they would agree. I just I don't think we've pinned that down as precisely as I would need to in order to give you an unequivocal response to that question.
Fair enough. Mr. Wells.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I just ask you that I think probably prudent was to direct town council to do that and to do it as expeditiously as possible, given the time frame here, so that we have an answer. I mean, we've determined what the question is so that we can come up with an answer on what the hours will be for this election. I think he's correct that he's the one who's going to find the answer, and I agree with both Mr. Zoli and with what Madam Clerk asked. I just like to get the answer sooner versus later so we can move this forward one way or another.
Ms. Musto.
Thank you. I do think it's important to see what the answer would be to that, to allow for the longer time frame for people to vote. Seems like that's similar to how our usual town elections are, is we allow for that full day. So I agree. I back all the previous speakers saying that we should investigate that and do that as soon as we can. Obviously, we have a short time frame, so and given the holiday and everything, we want to make sure that that gets going soon. Thank you.
Unless, without objection, it sounds like there is a consensus among the board to have the longer hours. Is there any disagreement on that? So it sounds like there's a consensus among the board to have the extended hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so I guess, so let's take that first, and then we'll take the issue of legality, of the legality of putting on the ballot something that will violate the law. Mr. Mello, is the best motion here a motion to authorize the town administrator and the town council to best effectuate extended voting hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. For this election, something to that effect?
Yeah, maybe with an additional line to the effect that, including authorization to commence a court proceeding if deemed necessary.
All right. And all right, so I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator and the town clerk, working with the town clerk and town council, to best effectuate extended voting hours from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for this election, and to authorize town council, if necessary, to seek court action to do so.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, this will be a roll call vote. Roll call vote. I'm taking another sip of my coffee. This will be a roll call vote. All those in favor, this will be Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zoll,
Yes.
and Mr. Zulish, yes. All right, there was also a question about, and I believe Mr. Mello addressed it, but there was an issue about the question of the legality of including this as a referendum question. Have we exhausted that issue? Any further comment on that? I mean, I will say that, I do believe this petition and this referendum is just about one thing, and that's whether or not to violate the law. It's really not about zoning, because we've had 1 year of zoning process. We had no alternative to this zoning at town meeting. We have no alternatives for the next town meeting for zoning. So if this were about zoning, there would be an alternative zoning proposal. This is not about changing the law. Some people suggested this is not the process for changing or challenging the law. So this is not about zoning. This is not about changing or challenging the law. This is just about one thing, and that's about whether this town will violate the law or not. And so having said that, this is the process. And this is the process allows this. The select board does not have the authority not to put this on the ballot. The select board is mandated by section 7 to put this on the ballot if the petition has the required signatures, which this petition does. But that doesn't change what the petition is, and that is a petition to violate the law. Any other comments or questions or motions on this? Ms. Bradley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two things. One, even though there's no snow on the ground right now, I can recall back in February of 2015, there was a beyond blizzard. We had feet and feet of snow. I'm just curious to know what happens if on February 13th, it's a state of emergency and nobody can leave their house and there's snow everywhere. And I know this may sound drastic and crazy, but nobody thought this petition would be coming down the pike after 2/3 of town meeting vote in favor of it. So I just wanted to know what would happen if we do end up like 2015 and there was a snowmageddon. Do we have to set a date in case? I don't know. I mean, you guys were in charge of the town then. What happened at town hall? Did we shut down 2015? I don't know.
Well, I don't think any of us were in charge of the town except for our clerk. So I think our clerk,
Right.
I think our clerk has to give us the answer on what happens if there is a climate event for the election.
So the election goes on. Yes, there would have to be, some extraordinary circumstances for it to be canceled or postponed.
Okay.
So in my opinion, it would still
So Sue, can I ask if
be
the
like the
governor,
postman.
if the governor called a state of emergency, and there was obviously in a state of emergency, you can't leave your homes, or if he called or she called a shelter in place, that would then the election could not move forward at that point, correct?
As far as I know, it would take an act, and Peter might be able to answer that better than or more equipped than I, as to how that would move forward. But I know that there have been storms in the past and elections have been carried through. During the tragedy of 9/11, there was an election going on.
Right.
So, elections do not stop or pretty much anything.
Yes, and this is something that I'd like to get the elections division's perspective on, because presumably they've dealt with it. I have a memory of having dealt with this a while back, and I don't remember all the particulars of that situation, but as I recall, it was expected that the forecast called for heavy snow on the day of a special election. Didn't end up happening, and it became apparent that it wasn't going to happen, I think, a day or so ahead. But I think the plan in that instance was to move for emergency court relief, if memory serves. So that suggests that there wasn't a ready mechanism to do it unilaterally. But I don't know. I'd have to look into that to confirm.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to bring it up just in case that does happen, remembering those wonderful days of shoveling in 2015. And if I may, Mr. Chair, just make a statement real quick.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So I heard a lot of folks earlier today speak about how this is the will of the people and letting the people speak. And I'm all for that. I'm all for letting the people speak. I would love to see our elections have more voter turnout. Unfortunately, our current elections sit about 20% of those that are enrolled as registered voters. That's who comes out. And so those people that came out, they elected those town meeting members. We are an elected town body. We're not just those that show up. We have to run. We are elected, and we are elected to represent our town. And by doing so, we sit through many hours at town meeting, we sit through presentations, and we learn about the topics that are on the warrant. In doing that, this past December, we voted 2/3 to approve Article 1. And as Chair Zulus said, there is no other article, there is no other proposal. I have watched every planning board meeting in the last 6 months, and there has been not one proposal besides Miss Oldfield's, and that was not voted on. But she was the only one that had tried to make another proposal. Now, it was not in line with the current law, but that was the only proposal that I saw. I've not seen anything from the planning board that said that they were trying to make a proposal that actually complied with the law. We have gone to the governor, we have gone to HLC, we have gone to all of these people and asked to try and be reclassified. We've asked for more time. We have asked for all the things, and they have come back time and time again saying, no, we are a rapid transit community. It has to be done by December 31st. As somebody who is currently a law student and studying the law, I find it appalling that we are taking a vote to not comply with our town or our state laws. That to me is very troubling. While it's the will of the people, and absolutely I will support that, it is troubling to me that we are going to be voting on something that actually puts us in jeopardy of not abiding by our state constitution, an oath I took when I became a select board member and town meeting member. So I hope that everybody, when they go to the polls on February 13th, barring no huge snowmageddon, I hope they take that into consideration as they cast their votes, because it is a very serious thing that we are talking about. There is no other alternative. We will be violating state law, and to me, that is critical of what I've been elected to do, both as a town meeting member and as a select board member. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity. And I hope when folks go to the polls to vote, they vote knowing that they will be breaking the law.
Mr. Zoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had one quick follow-up question for Mr. Mello on Ms. Bradley's comments, and then I had my a separate thought because I think it is a good question. This is New England, and if you don't like the weather, wait for a day, and it'll be totally different. And since we have been kind of picking and choosing from the town bylaws in order to make this a more inclusive election, which I think is the right thing to do, there is a point in the bylaws which requires a particular level of turnout, and I'm not sure that we got directly to that question as part of Ms. Bradley's comments, but I believe that the bylaws require us to have at least 20% turnout, and so if there were a weather event or some other extraordinary event that happened and we weren't at that threshold, is there a sense that the election is still valid, or is it challengeable? And should that question also be brought up as you're seeking to clarify the rules? And I think certainly, Mr. Chair, this is a sort of evidence that we probably need some input from the bylaw committee on this whole process, because it seems to be totally out of compliance with the state law. So Mr. Mello, I'd appreciate thought there, and then I'd reserve my right to make a comment after. Thank you.
Yeah, so the short answer to the question of the scope of the court relief, we could ask for the court to issue an order with respect to other logistical items beyond the hours during which polling locations will be open. You mentioned a bylaw. I'm aware that there is a 20% voter turnout thresholds contained in General Laws Chapter 43A, Section 10, I'm not aware of any language in the town bylaws to that effect.
Sorry, I turned it around. I meant state bylaw, not town bylaw.
Oh, the
So, Are we
statute,
beholden to
yeah,
state? Yeah, state
right,
statute. Thank you.
right. So, that, as I understand it, that's a provision that would apply. Um, it's in the absence of a charter provision. So because we're governed under Section 7, that I don't believe that would that threshold would apply. Is it something that we could address in a proposed court order? Could we ask the court to include some like that, to apply that 20% threshold? I think we could ask the court for anything. I don't know, that, like I said, that the scope of a court's equitable powers is pretty broad. I don't know how likely it is that a court would do that. I guess I'd have to consider that a little further.
Thank you, Mr. Mello. So just returning to my time, Mr. Chair, I just want to, I feel like it's important for all of us to acknowledge that this is obviously an irregular process. This is a process that's going to cost the town over $60,000. And I'm in favor of opening this question up to the town. What I really hope happens over the next month and a half, 2 months, is that the folks who are going to be going to the polls in February put the same effort into learning about the law and learning about the results of noncompliance with the law as possible. I think that, town meeting members did that. We've done that on this board. There's a reason why we had an article in the warrant for compliance. The easy way to fix something, if people feel something is inequitable, is to work through the zoning process. This is not, the passage of the Article 1 did not permanently create something that can never be altered. The planning board could come back to the next town meeting with alterations to that article, and we could consider them. If we, on the other hand, overturn this article, we are forfeiting our town's rights to set our own zoning, and we will be subject to court-ordered and developer-directed zoning. In effect, nothing will have been saved, and we will be in a worse position than we are now. We will be subjected to who knows what kinds of processes, but we know that that will happen because we've seen this play out before with 40B developments. When the town failed to comply with its affordable housing requirements, we were subjected to unfriendly 40B developments. And if you've seen one go up in your neighborhood or you're complaining about that, then this is the results of noncompliance with state law. If we don't comply, it's still going to happen. I don't want to call the folks who are against this law NIMBYs because, frankly, yes, in your backyard, it's going to happen if you vote for this. So it's not a matter of not now or not this way. If the folks who are really serious about looking at and amending this article want to do something about it, please go to the planning board and tell them this is how we would like to change it. This is how we would like to amend it. And start spending some time with Mr. Zerwinski to understand how complicated that process is. All of the requirements that go into it. We can say very easily, yes, every neighborhood should have an apartment building. I think that's what somebody kind of suggested earlier. Of course, that's not what the state law requires. The state law requires contiguous units, 50% of which are in the transit corridor. So spend some time, learn about the law, learn about what noncompliance looks like, because those buildings, there's going to be, if somebody wanted tomorrow to put up a 40B development where the salt sheds are right now, they could do it. So it's not like we're preventing something from happening or we're causing something to happen that couldn't happen. There are real costs to this town if we decide to ignore state law. The benefit is not that we won't have any of this development. The cost is that it will be imposed upon us by outside forces. We will lose our voice. I'm a strong believer in the voice of Milton. That's why I'm in favor of having this election. And I'm a strong believer that the voters of Milton are going to look at the facts. They're going to make the right decision. They're going to uphold what town meeting already upheld. They're going to keep Milton compliant with state law, and they're going to continue to ensure that Milton controls its own destiny, and it's not imposed upon us by outside developers and the courts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You, Mr. Zoll, Ms. Musto.
Thank you. A couple of points that I'd like to bring up. One is one of my colleagues was talking about that we asked for reclassification. And I think this gets brought up a lot, and just for clarity's sake, I do want to just speak on that for 2 seconds here. You could look at any of the letters that were sent out. It did not say reclassification. It said clarification of a classification. Those are 2 different asks. So I would encourage people to please go to the website and look at our letters. The other thing is, there's this thing about the law. There is the law and then there are guidelines. And again, I think there are some discrepancies with that. I think even our own town attorney has spoken this at different points, and other attorneys have as well. So I don't think everything's so cut and dry as people are trying to make this. And I think we represent the people, all of the people in town, all of the groups of people in town. And I think the most important thing here is we need to be honest with people. And so if we say that we sent out a letter, we need to be honest with what that letter said. We need to be honest what's in the letter and what is not in the letters that we sent. We need to be honest about that. When we did it, there was a time when we even asked for more time. I did, and none of the people on this board would support it. So I think it's important that we're truthful with people, and factual. And I think that's really important because we do represent everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Musto. Let's be truthful and factual. August 10th, 2023, the Select Board wrote as follows to the MBTA. The significant differences in service, infrastructure, and equipment demonstrate that the Mattapan trolley line is not equivalent to the rapid transit lines and that its previous classification as not being rapid transit should be restored. That's what the letter said on August 10th, 2023 from this board to the MBTA. Ms. Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for that clarification. I knew that we had asked for reclassification on that. I had a technical question that I'd like to throw out to Mr. Mello, because since I'm planning for Snowmageddon already, I'd like to plan for how long we might be in violation. So let's say, Mr. Mello, that this goes to the voters and the voters vote to repeal Article 1. Is it true that we cannot come back to this for 2 years after a vote by town meeting? And if so, does that mean we're out of compliance for 2 years and that we would lose funding for 2 years, like for 2 years?
Yeah, no, thank you. So the question is, would a vote to reverse effectively town meeting's approval of Article 1 constitute unfavorable action?
Yeah.
Unfavorable actions of parlance from 48 Section 5. The short answer is I'm still evaluating that question. I've had the same thought. I'm not sure that there's going to be on point precedent on the question. There might be. At least initially hadn't located any, but I guess one interesting, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole. One interesting nuance is that I think 48 Section 5 uses the phrase unfavorable action by town meeting. Query whether this would constitute that. Obviously, it's a ballot election called, Section 7 uses the phrase special town meeting. I don't want to go too far down where I am and on the question. It's something that I think I need to look at a little further. I can't offer a conclusive opinion on that, as I'm sitting here.
Okay. I'm very concerned about that, Mr. Mello. So if we could get an answer on that one. I do believe that the town of Milton will vote to uphold Article 1. I do believe that they voted to elect their town meeting members, and those town meeting members have voted and spoken on behalf of the residents of this town, all residents of this town. So I'm sure that will not be a case, but in my Snowmageddon ways, I'm just curious what the consequences will be if this is a no vote, and what the consequences will be on a statewide, will this impact earmarks that come to us through the legislature? The broad scope of it, the governor was very clear that she was looking at even more ways to come at cities and towns that did not comply with this law. So I'm just curious what extent that could be. So thank you.
And just to follow on, let's be honest, that this petition is about, saying that it's okay not to follow the law, saying that it's okay to be a tax cheat, and not pay your taxes. It's about saying that, our children, if they don't like the rules in school, they can just violate them and break the rules because they don't like them. I think this petition and this now election is about a steady assault on our values and our principles that began in the summer of 2015. I think this is a local example of an assault on the rule of law and facts and values and principles. But I do believe in the residents of this town, and I do believe that this election will be a great cleansing for this attempted stain on our town by attempting to have it not comply with the law and not act in accordance with our democratic process and the laws enacted through our democratic process. Other comments or questions? Mr. Zoll.
This is a quick one, I promise, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I just want to acknowledge Mr. Mello. I think, you have really, I called you a couple of times with my own questions about this. I know you've been fielding questions from a number of folks. I think, the thoughtfulness in which you're delivering your answers demonstrates the unprecedented nature of this election and of these questions. And so I understand why you're being cautious about this, because there's simply, frankly, not much precedent, if any precedent, of a town trying to have an election that would overturn or make itself violate state law. So I think I just want to salute you and acknowledge. I know that sometimes people want a yes or no question. My dad's a lawyer, so I've been getting legal questions since an early age, and I perhaps have a high tolerance for them. But I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the diligence and the time that you're putting into this on behalf of the town. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions on item 3? Sue, do you have everything you need?
I do.
Nick, Peter, do you have everything you need?
Yes, thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, item 4 is, item 4 and item 5 are executive sessions items. So I will move to adjourn from the open session and enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation filed by the town of Milton versus the Federal Aviation Administration, number 22-152, based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the select board. The select board will not return to open session.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Zoll,
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. Second, I move to enter into executive session, adjourn from open session and enter into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to threatened litigation based on my belief that the discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the select board. And this is an item, this is an item with respect to threatened litigation against the town by a town employee.
I'll second.
The select board will not return to open session.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Musto,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
I think Mr. Wells already left for the executive session.
Mr. Zoll,
Yes.
Mr. Zulish, yes. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn from open session. Oh, I already moved to adjourn from open session, so we have it. So thank you, everyone. We will see you again, unless we have to meet sooner. We will see you again on, I believe, Tuesday or Wednesday, January 9th. Is that it, Nick? Tuesday, January 9th. Tuesday, January 9th. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again on Tuesday, January 9th. Thank you.